Paramananda Pathaya Prema Varsha Aksharaya Te Sarvada Sarvasevaya Shri Krishnaya Namostute Mad Ekabandhu Mad Sangin Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute Asadu Sadhu Tadain Ati Nichocha Takara Hana Muncha Kadachin Ma Prema Ritkantayospuraha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udire Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridyantastva Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapatakam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you everyone for joining. So today we'll be discussing chapter 10, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. So this is a point that we have been seeing repeatedly in the previous chapters, that we hear that yes, Krishna is ready to go to Dwarka, right? And then Uttara comes and says, oh, this Brahmastra is coming, please save me, right? And then there was a prayers from Uttara, and Krishna said, Parikshit Maharaj in the womb of Uttara. And then he's ready to go on the chariot. And then who comes? Queen Kunti comes, right? And she recites all her prayers. The entire 8th chapter we read about the prayers of Queen Kunti to Lord Krishna. And after that entire prayers, and Krishna just smiles at Queen Kunti and reciprocates in that way. And then after that, Krishna is ready to leave. But then Maharaj Yudhishthir is actually still lamenting on the loss of, on the killing of 640 million people, just so that he can become the king. And he's still lamenting. And then Vyasdev comes and tries to console him, and then Lord Krishna himself tries to console him, and still Maharaj Yudhishthir is actually not consoled. And then he's still lamenting, and then Krishna says, okay, we are going to go to Bhishma Pitama, and he's going to cure your lamentation in the heart. And then we read the 9th chapter, where we read about how Bhishma Dev, he greeted the Pandavas, and how he actually expressed the point of how is it possible that all these calamities have come upon you? You Pandavas are so glorious. Lord Krishna is always with you. How have this actually come? And we read about the Bhishma Dev making, well, this is all under the influence of time that all this is happening. And then finally he concludes by the point that everything is actually happening by the will of the Lord. And all these so-called suffering is actually exchanges of rasa between the devotees, right? And then Bhishma Pitama, he instructed Maharaj Yudhishthir and the Pandavas into different kinds of dharma. There was Raja Dharma, then there was Dana Dharma, then Stri Dharma, then Bhagavata Dharma, right? So it's different kinds of, and Varnashram Dharma. So these 5 are the main. That Bhishma Dev actually instructed the Pandavas on this. And then we read that how Bhishma Dev, he actually departed. So through that entire episode, Krishna has shown the glories of Bhishma Dev. If anyone has any doubts about the character of Bhishma Dev, then why Bhishma Dev is on the side of the Kauravas? Why did he fight against the Pandavas? to remove all those doubts and to actually establish the glories of Bhishma Dev, then that entire episode is actually described in the Bhagavatam. That Krishna personally came in front of Bhishma Dev when he was actually departing. And in spite of all those sages who were there, still Krishna said, Bhishma Dev, you give instruction to all the Pandavas to show the glory of Bhishma Dev and how he had knowledge even beyond that of Krishna in one way, to actually establish the glory of Bhishma. Right? So now everything is done, right? So Yudhishthira Maharaj has heard the instructions. He's, at least to a certain extent in his heart, he is feeling that, okay, now all that has happened. Now my next thing is I have to rule, right? Also we read in the previous chapter the verse about Bhishma Dev telling that there are so many anath, right? So many orphans, or like those who have lost their husbands and lost their fathers, right? So many anath, now you have to become sanat for them. You have to become their protector. So having received all this instruction, then naturally the next thing is Maharaj Yudhishthira now is going to rule. So the first verse actually we'll hear about Sonak Rishi asking this question of how did Maharaj Yudhishthira actually rule? And that in the first section of this chapter, we are going to discuss the glories of Maharaj Yudhishthira's rule and how when he was ruling, everything was so auspicious. So that's our first section of this chapter. So from text 1 to 6 is basically King Yudhishthira's rule and how prosperous was his kingdom. And very nice points Prabhupada explains in the purport. The second section is actually from text 7 to all the way 19. And basically this is actually describing when Krishna was actually departing. Now he's finally departing for Dwarka. And when he's departing, what is the emotions of the Pandavas? How can they tolerate separation from Lord Sri Krishna? And those emotions are actually described very nicely. The intensity of the emotions of not only Pandavas, but different people, which we'll read as a whole list of names in the Kuru, in that Hastinapur, who were feeling that intense separation. Right? And then after that, how Krishna actually departed. The third section is basically when Krishna was leaving, then the ladies of Hastinapur, they actually expressed their prayers to Lord Sri Krishna. Right? Now Krishna is leaving, so they are actually expressing their heartfelt prayers. And the final section is we read about Krishna's journey from Hastinapur all the way to. Right? So 4 sections are there. First is how did Maharaj Yudhishthira rule? Second is when Krishna was leaving, what was the state of the people of Hastinapur? Third thing is the prayers, right? Prayers of the ladies of Hastinapur. And the fourth one is final, which is just like a concluding section, is actually the journey of Krishna from Hastinapur to Dwarka. Right? So it's very nice in Bhagavatam. One may say, like, if you're interested in just the storyline, many times in Mahabharata, we just like to read the stories. We are not interested. As soon as the prayers come, then it's like, okay, let's skip it. Come to the story. What's happening next? But you see the flow of the Bhagavatam, it is actually prayers, and in between there is stories. That is it. So actually, if you see what is the best prayer book, Bhagavatam is actually a prayer book, because the prayers of different devotees in different rasas are actually expressed to Lord Sri Krishna. And that's why what does 1.1.3 say? Rasam alayam. This is the abode of rasa. So all the different devotees, what was Queen Kunti's emotions to Lord Krishna? What was her rasa? Then what was Bhishma Dev's rasa, where he was meditating on Krishna, holding the chariot wheel and running towards him. And now we'll see the rasa of these ladies of Hastinapur to Krishna. It is predominantly Shanta rasa. But we'll come to that. Okay. So ready, we'll start. So let's start. So we have the list of names. So you can follow, read along, right, the verses. So let's start with 10.1.
Shonaka Uvacha Hatva Svarika Sprida Artatayino Yudhisthiro Dharma Vritam Varishtaha Sahanujay Pratyavarudha Bhojanaha Katham Pravritta Kim Akara Shitata.
Translation. Shaunaka Muni asked, after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaja Yudhishthira, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness.
So one way, if you see the entire aspect of the Mahabharata story coming to Yudhishthira being established as the emperor, we can say that everything that's happened is just for Maharaj Yudhishthira to become the emperor, right? And that was the whole plan of Krishna to establish. So naturally, now finally he's established as the emperor. How did he rule? It's a natural question. We want to know what is the rule. So that's the question here. And basically is this, right? Yudhishthira Dharma Vritam Varishtaha, right? So Dharma Vritam is one who strictly follows religious principle, and Varishta, the best of all those men, is Maharaj Yudhishthira. So naturally we want to know how such a glorious king, personality as Maharaj Yudhishthira, is actually ruling. Okay, the other words is Hatva Swarikta. Swarikta means actually this entire kingdom belonged to Yudhishthira. Swa means his own. Actually, it was his own kingdom, right? And then it says Pratyavaruddha, but it was wrongly. Pratya means opposite, right? Opposite. So it was wrongly taken over by the Kurus, but now it is Swarikta. Now he's actually taken back his own kingdom, right? So how did he actually rule? And then Prabhupada actually in the translation, he's actually adding this mood of Maharaj Yudhishthira by saying, surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. Like, so many people, 640 million have been killed, and also, not only those, his own sons are actually killed. Like we read about Draupadi's sons being killed, that entire episode. His own sons have been killed. His grandson Abhimanyu has been killed. Oh, sorry, again his son, right? His son Abhimanyu has been killed. So many people have been killed, so he could not enjoy with unrestricted consciousness. Right? So how did he rule? That's the main thing. And also, if you remember in chapter 9, we read about how Bhishma Dev actually told Yudhishthira Maharaj that whatever you have done under the guidance of three personalities. Who is that? Vipra, Dharma, Achyuta. Right? Brahmanas or Vaishnavas, Dharma, religious principles, and Achyuta, Lord Shri Krishna. So whatever you've done is all under the action of these three. So we want to see how Maharaj Yudhishthira is actually leading under the guidance of Lord Shri Krishna. Now, there's one interesting point to consider here, that Krishna actually tests us both in times of success and in times of problems. Right? So previously, in the last two chapters, we have been reading how Krishna is testing his devotees through different problems. Right? We read in Queen Kunti's prayers also, she gives the entire, we read about all the problems and how Queen Kunti is actually saying that during all those problems, you were the one who actually saved us. And then in the previous chapter also, Bhishma, they're talking of all the problems that Yudhishthira, all the Pandavas had to go through. And its focus was more on how through all those problems, the devotees express their devotion to Lord Shri Krishna. Right? Now, Krishna is going to test Maharaj Yudhishthira that how through success, he is actually glorious even in that situation. Through troubles and also through glory. Right? So in both these things, Krishna actually tests his devotees. So it's a very practical point. So in times of troubles, basically the point for us to actually see is when we are in difficult situation, who are we taking shelter of? Who are we taking shelter of? Who are we turning to for that protection or for that relief from the problem? Right? And then the second aspect that during troubles or calamities is how consistent is our sadhana. It is easy that in a regular way, yes, we are doing my sadhana, but when it is difficult, how consistent is our sadhana? Right? So those are the two practical tests that Krishna is actually giving us this test, and that we have to kind of endeavor in our life. Who are we taking shelter of? And second one is how consistent is our sadhana in spite of all those challenges. Right? And during success, right? What is Krishna testing us? How can we actually, deal with successes? First thing, are we really humble during the success? Right? And second one, who are we giving credit to? Who are we giving credit to? So this is a nice point to consider. And everyone is okay with chatting. Putting some words in the chat box. Okay. So if you consider that I am the controller, I am the doer. How, when you are faced with challenging situations, how do you feel? Can you type in some few words in the chat, or maybe just unmute them? When we consider that I am actually a doer, I am in charge, and then there are difficult. We are stressed, right? Certainly, we feel stressed. What else? We feel sad. Okay. Helpless. Yeah, we feel helpless. Like, why did this happen to me? Why me? Angry. Yeah, all these emotions. When we think that we are the controller and the problem comes, these are the emotions. We are afraid of making mistakes. Yeah, all these, wonderful. Now, depressed. Okay, my own karma. Okay, so what Vijaya Mata, your point is the other point. Now I'm just asking about the point when we think that we are in charge, right? We are controller. Then it is depressed, making mistakes, sad, angry, helpless. Okay. Now, when we consider that actually Krishna is in control, I am just an instrument. How do you feel then? How do you feel? Relaxed. Yeah, we feel safe. Yeah, we feel protected. Yeah, problems are there, but Krishna is there. Whatever is it, Krishna will be there. He will help you. Right? We feel peaceful. We feel protected. Right? So it is just a matter of change of our consciousness. There is some lesson that I should learn. Right? That is very important. We feel fearless. Yeah, Abhaya. Right? Abhaya Chanma Ravindra. Abhay, we feel fearless, right? So it is just a matter of change of consciousness. So if we consider we are the controller, we feel frustrated, we feel depressed, we blame other people. But if you think Krishna is in control, we actually consider Krishna, what is the lesson is there that I need to learn? We feel that grateful that Krishna, you have reduced my karma. My karma was so vast. I was supposed to have such a big love, but you have reduced. You're just giving me a token. Right? Now the same thing we can see for success. If we consider we are controller, we are doer, and we get some success, how do we feel? You want to type in few words? Yeah, proud. Yeah, we feel, I did it. I made it. Right? We feel that, oh, let me not go away. This is my success. I have gained it. Right? We be proud, invincible. Yes, thank you. Top of the world, happy. Now, when we get success and we consider, yes, this is all from Krishna, then how do we feel? Humble, okay? Humble, grateful, happy, humble. And we say, Krishna, thank you so much. Really grateful. So you see, both the situation, happiness, distress. If we consider we are the controller, see those emotions. It is from frustration, depression, blame, pride, and then I am in charge, I am so and so. And all those things are actually causes of a misery. But if you just turn to, yes, Krishna, you're in control, right? Everything that's happening, Krishna is by your will. Happiness or distress. All those emotions, you just compare. When we are in trouble, we say, Krishna, thank you for reducing the trouble. We feel, Krishna, what is the lesson you want me to learn? And when we get success, Krishna, it is you actually who's giving me this. So let me actually use all my success in your service of Krishna. We feel grateful. Okay. So let's go. So now Krishna is basically now this next phase is during success. How did Maharaj Yudhishthira actually deal with that success now he has? Now he is the emperor The entire world, imagine his position. Okay. Text 2.
Sutta uvacha Vamsham kururvamshadavagni nirritam samrohayitva bhavabhavano harihi niveshayitva nijaraja ishvaro yudhishtiram pritamana babhuvaha.
Sut Goswami said, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing Maharaj Yudhishthira in his own kingdom and after restoring the Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger.
So it says, Yudhishthira Prita Mana Bahuva. So Prita Mana, pleased in his mind. Right? And also it says Bhava Bhavana. Bhava Bhavana referring to Krishna as the maintainer of the creation. So now Sutta Goswami is replying to the question of Shaunak Rishi, how did Maharaj Yudhishthira rule? And first point he's actually saying is that Krishna was pleased by Maharaj Yudhishthira becoming that. Right? So finally, the whole point is Krishna should be pleased. So Maharaj Yudhishthira knew that by my taking this position, Krishna is pleased, hence I will do it. And that's everything for us, right? Should I do this or not? Does it give pleasure to Krishna or not? If it gives pleasure to Krishna, I'll do it. If it doesn't give pleasure to Krishna, and that's the principle of bhakti, right? So Lord Krishna, he became pleased after re-establishing Maharaj Yudhishthira in his own kingdom. And after restoring the Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger. Right? So now if you actually consider this point of like even the Sanskrit here say Vamsam Kuru Vamsa Davagni Niryatam. Sorry. So when you say Vamsa Davagni, a forest fire set by bamboos. So Prabhupada actually focuses on this point in the purport that how in this material world, the world is actually compared to a forest fire. So if you see this forest fire, it is just the bamboos, they just rub against each other and the fire starts. And it's the same thing in this material world. The fire or the anger is just like no reason, right? The two bamboos are not doing anything, but just because of wind, they rub and then there's fire, right? The similar nature of this material world is just like that. So just people coming together means there's going to be conflict. And hence there's always need of and about like conflict resolution and things like that. There's always a need because there's going to be conflicts in this material world. So Prabhupada says this material world is just like a fire, forest fire, and the forest fire takes place automatically, by bamboos rubbing towards people. So here we can see Krishna's role in creating this entire Vamsha Davagni. Right? So just like what creates the fire in the forest is just the wind. Right? The wind is blowing, and because of that, the bamboos are having the effect, and that's fire. Krishna is just like the wind. So what all has happened? Krishna, just like a wind, has created all the situation for the Pandavas and Kurus to actually fight, and so that Maharaj Yudhishthira actually established as the emperor. Right? So the way that Krishna acts is just like the wind. That one may not even see the wind, but still one will see the fire. Right? So similarly, Krishna's hand is just like that. So just from the background, na tasya karyam karanam ta vidate. Krishna does not personally come and say, do things that, I need to create a conflict between this and that. Just like the wind, Krishna's presence and his desire, everything has happened in the Kuru dynasty. Right? And also Prabhupada in this purport, he focuses on the point that how Krishna has created this entire creation for the purpose of what? For the purpose of getting all these conditioned souls back home, back to God. That is the purpose of the entire creation. Right? Even in Queen Kunti's prayers, if you remember, she gives so many reasons why Krishna actually appeared in this material world. And finally, what is the final reason that she gives? Who can say? You can unmute your line.
Rejuvenate bhakti.
Yes, rejuvenate bhakti. Very nice. So Krishna's whole purpose of appearance, the real, is to actually get everyone, all of us, back home, back to God. Right? And in that, to do that, he wants to establish a king who is actually a devotee of the Lord. Because if the king, the head or the government itself is a devotee, then naturally the way he's ruling, the way he's connecting with the citizens, everything will be in the Krishna conscious way. So the Krishna's desire of creating, of having this entire creation to deliver the conditioned soul is actually very properly or very, the plan is very nicely executed when the emperor itself is actually a devotee of the Lord. Right? So when Maharaj Yudhishthir is actually a king, then naturally we can consider his citizens will actually get the best opportunity to revive their Krishna consciousness and go back home. Right? So that's all under the Lord's plan, and hence the Lord has actually established Maharaj Yudhishthir as the. Okay. And also there's another point in this verse where it says, that's the word for seedling. Yeah, Samrohayitva, seedling of the dynasty, right? So he established Maharaj Yudhishthir, but he protected the seedling. And who is the seedling here? Maharaj Parikshit, right? So that is all by the plan of Krishna. And how did Krishna do it? Just like the wind blowing, he actually created the rift and everything was perfectly executed. And now Maharaj Yudhishthir is the king and Parikshit is actually saved. Okay, now text 3.
Nishamya bhishmoktam atachyutoktam pravritta vigyana vidhuta vibramaha shashasagamindra ivajitashrayah paretyupantam anujanuvartitaha.
Maharaj Yudhishthir, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge, because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers.
So it says Bhishma Uktam and Achyuta Uktam, right? Uktam means what? Said. So after hearing the instructions from Bhishma Dev and hearing the instructions from Achyuta, Krishna, then Yudhishthira Maharaj is now ruling, right? So these are the main points, that how are we doing anything based on the guidance of Vaishnavas and based on the guidance of the Lord himself. And that's how we act, right? So those 2 points. So Bhishma Uktam and Achyuta Uktam. And when one actually follows the instructions of the Vaishnavas and Lord Shri Krishna himself, then what happens? 3 things happen, right? Let's describe in this verse. First is Pravritta Vijnana. Pravritta Vijnana means one is actually engaged in perfect knowledge. Pravritta Vijnana. First thing, engaged in perfect knowledge. The second point is Vidhuta Vibramaha. Vidhuta Vibramaha means all our misgivings or our doubts are actually vanquished. Right? Which is a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna makes this point. Well, just by hearing, all our doubts are actually vanquished. Anyone knows? Bhagavad Gita 7.1. Maya satta manapartha yogam yunjan manashre asamsayam samabham yata gyasati tat shrunu. Just by hearing what will have, asamsayam, all your doubts will actually be vanquished, right? And one will actually get true knowledge. So both the points. Pravritta Vijnana will happen, Vidhuta Vibrama. All our misgivings are actually possible. And third thing that will happen is Ajita Ashraya. One will actually take shelter of Ajita. Ajita, who is who? Krishna, who is one who can never be conquered. So just by hearing, hearing instructions or hearing, taking the instructions from devotees and Krishna, all these things will happen. We'll get perfect knowledge, all our misgivings will be eradicated, and third, we'll take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. So basically, this is described that Maharaj Yudhishthira is enlightened by both instructions from Bhishma Dev and Krishna, and he engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all misgivings were actually eradicated. And this is the way he ruled, and where they ruled over the earth and seas. So everything, Maharaj Yudhishthira was actually the emperor of the whole world, and he was actually followed by his younger brother Anuja Anuvartita, followed by Anuja. Anuja means younger brother. So Prabhupada actually in the purport makes a point. How is it possible for one person to become the emperor of the whole world? How is it possible to have that one world state? And here Prabhupada actually gives a wonderful, he gives 4 instructions for a proper government or a proper king. Right? The first one, he says, is that the government or the person should actually be properly trained. The king should actually be properly trained. Second thing is that he should have full power. He should be autocratic. In the sense that Prabhupada makes the point that even if someone is trained properly, he has proper instructions, right? He knows dharma, right? But if he is not an autocratic, then he cannot even implement those laws, right? And that is seen even in the situation today. And even though a minister, prime minister, or president may have, that's also very rare. But even if he is actually dharmic, he has actually, he knows dharma, but still he cannot implement those activities of dharma. Why? Because he's dependent on other people to give him vote, his ministers and all his cabinet and all those people. So Prabhupada makes a point that dharmic king should be fully autocratic. He should have the power to actually implement the principles of dharma. Third thing, how can we have a one world state, or how can we have Maharaj Yudhishthira rule the entire world? Because any principles that they implement should be actually guided by Krishna. If it is not guided by Krishna, then whatever principles you make, it will make some people happy and will make some people dissatisfied. You cannot satisfy all the people unless you implement the principle which are actually given by Krishna himself, because Krishna is giving the principles for the benefit of the entire humanity. So because Maharaj Yudhishthira was ruling based on the instructions given by Krishna, hence he could rule all the people, because by that service to Krishna, everyone is actually pleased. Right? By watering the root of a tree, the entire tree is actually satisfied. Similarly, that's the principle. So that's the third point, right? So first is that king should be properly trained. Second, he should have full power. He should be autocratic to implement those principles of dharma. Third, he should be guided by Lord Shri Krishna himself. And then fourth principle is, Prabhupada is actually making the point in purport, it is actually a person rules, not the impersonal government, right? So the head who is actually selected to rule should actually have these previous 3 points. That he should be trained, he should have full power, and Prabhupada is actually making the point. Then now we say that, well, it's the entire government. And that's a very impersonal concept. It is that one person who is the head of the government, that is the one who makes the difference, right? So that head of the government should actually have these 3. Prabhupada said, if the person is a fool, then the government is a fool's paradise, right? If the person who is ruling is actually having these top 3, then okay. So those are points in text 3. Let's go to text 4.
Kaman Vavarsha Parjanya Sarvakama Dughamahi Shishuchu Sma Vrajan Gava Payasodhasvatir Muda.
During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir, the cloud showers all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of the man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk.
So kamam means desire. Actually, if you in Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna use the word? Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, right? Where he actually says that the desires, that is actually used more in a negative sense, right? But here, those kamas are actually referring to the desires, which are actually a basic necessities for existence. So those desires, which are a basic necessity for existence, kama vavarsha pajan, just by rains, everything, all the basic necessities for existence are satisfied. And then sarva kama duga mahi, sarva kama, all those necessities, how are they satisfied? Mahi, mahi referring to what? Earth. So by rainfall, by earth, right, land, and Sishusha Sma Brajan Gava. Rainfall, earth, and cows. That's it. That's all we need for economic development. Right? So Gavaha is referring to the cow. So when there's plenty of rainfall, then the earth will give everything what is required for existence: food, grains, fruits, milks, minerals. Prabhupada also says that when rain falls and the astronomical constant influence is actually good, then it will produce nice stones, jewels. Everything is produced by the earth, right? So everything, right? And then the cow, Shishra Brajan Gavaha, and the cow, when she is muda, when she is actually very happy, she'll give sufficient milk, and so much milk that the milk itself will moisten the earth, right? And that way the earth will be satisfied and the earth will produce. So it's like kind of a cycle, right? The cows are satisfied, then the milk is produced, and from the milk the earth is moistened, and the earth will produce more things, and then more rain, and then things will keep on. Now, let's say, I was thinking about this point that if someone, let's say, is just coming to, let's say here, right? He wants to come here, he's coming from India, let's say he's coming here, he has nothing or any place. He's coming and he wants to settle here. What are the things he will actually say are my things for for existing here? What are necessities? First thing he'll say, I need a cell phone. How will I live without a cell phone? First thing, cell phone. I need a car, I need a house, I need a laptop, I need an iPad, and then all these things. But are these really necessities of life? Are these the things that we need for economic development? This is one purport which I feel in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada is so heavy on our modern civilization. The entire purport, there's so many questions, but Prabhupada is challenging our modern civilization, and he's really heavy. I'm going to read certain sections of this purport. We can just consider like how Prabhupada, when he gives lectures, sometimes he gets so strong, so heavy, right? And we can read the purport in that mood. So towards the end of the first paragraph, right? He says, if there's enough milk, enough grains, so on, then why do people need cinemas, houses of prostitution, slaughterhouses, etc.? What is the need of an artificial, luxurious life of cinema, cars, radio, flesh, and hotels? Has this civilization produced anything but quarreling individually and nationally? This is what the civilization has given us. Quarreling individually, nationally, and nationally. Has the civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men into a hellish factory and war fields at the whims of a particular man? This is what the civilization has given us. This is a civilization we are proud of, right? And then further, Prabhupada, the entire purpose, in the next paragraph we see, should not, should not a king or executive head protect the lives of the poor animals who are unable to defend themselves? Actually, in the second paragraph, Prabhupada is actually talking of animal slaughter, particularly referring to, slaughtering so many cows. The cows, they are actually serving humanity. They give nice milk. They are actually, moistening the earth to produce so much nice produce, right? So why are we killing these? So Prabhupada said, should not a king or executive head protect the lives of the poor animals who are unable to defend themselves? They are innocent. They cannot defend themselves. We are actually supposed to give them protection. They are living to giving us benefit. And what are we doing in return? We are killing them. Is this humanity? Are not the animals of a country citizens also? Right? Then why are they allowed to be butchered and organized slaughter? You see, Prabhupada, like his anger in his purport on this modern civilization, right? And he doesn't stop there. And and third paragraph says, therefore, in contrast to the modern, advanced, civilized form of government, an autocracy like Maharaj Yudhishthir is far superior to a so-called democracy in which animals are killed and man, less than an animal, is allowed to cast votes for another less than animal man. The people who are voting are less than, are like animal, and the people who is voted is also an animal or less than an animal. And that is our current civilization. So Prabhupada is like so heavy in this, and he concludes this purport by saying, "This is but the life of dogs and hogs." You see Prabhupada, like, you can see his mood in his, in his lectures. Often you can hear this point. Prabhupada in lecture, like I was thinking, any lecture you pick anywhere, yeah, and you hear Prabhupada, two things you will see. One is the futility of this material existence, where Prabhupada is calling this entire civilization dogs, hogs, rascals. Like we see that, how Prabhupada is waking us up. And what are we taking shelter of? This material world is just futile. Any moment, anything can be taken. And second we'll hear is actually the glory of Krishna consciousness. And that's basically what is our philosophy. Our philosophy is two aspects. One is the futility of material existence. Second is the glory of Krishna consciousness. That's it. And that's all we need. We just need to be convinced the material world is not a place to live. Our original home, back to Krishna. Back. So, okay, but we see the main theme here is when Maharaj Yudhishthira was ruling, just because he was a devotee of the Lord, he was ruling according to dharma, achyuta, vipraha. He was actually ruling according to the guidance of Krishna. Everything was perfect. Sufficient rainfall. The land was actually producing all these nice minerals. The cows were actually giving excessive milk. What else do we need to live a happy life? Right? Okay. The text 5 will continue on this theme.
Nadya Samudra Giraya Savanaspati Virudaha Palantyo Shadayo Sarva Kaman Anritu Tasyavai.
Again, we see the word kamam, right? So 2 times before, and now this was again kamam, the desires for our existence. Okay, further.
The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion.
Prabhupada has given a very interesting purport to the translation to this purport. Like, okay, Nadya, Samudra, Giraha, that is all like, okay, simple. Rivers, oceans, hills, creepers, vegetables, vanaspati, vegetables, and so on. Prabhupada is saying they pay their tax quota to the king in profusion. Right? So this is Prabhupada revealing our understanding, or one important aspect of philosophy is that we personalize everything. Earth, yeah, we should protect the earth. Like, there are so many movements that are like, oh yeah, protection of the environment and so on. What is our philosophy? Our philosophy starts off by saying the earth is our mother. We start off with that, personalizing everything. Earth is our mother, and hence, who will hurt our mother? So if you consider our philosophy, as soon as we personalize every aspect, is a person. The land is a person. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, they are all like individual persons in one way. And Prabhupada is saying they pay their taxes to the king. And as soon as you personalize all these aspects, then immediately you are like, oh, if it's a person, then how can I hurt a person? The earth is our mother. Would you ever hurt our mother? The cow is our mother. Would you ever slaughter your mother? So Prabhupada is making a point. So they all pay their tax quota to the king. And Prabhupada in purport makes a point. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of Lord Sri Krishna. So secret of success is to take refuge under protection of the Supreme Lord. Everything is actually happening under the sanction of the Lord. So because Yudhishthira Maharaj was such a glorious king, a devotee of Lord Sri Krishna, everything was actually perfect, because everything is happening by the will of the Lord. Like in the 4th canto, there's a story of Prithu Maharaj, right? So Prithu Maharaj, when he actually became the king, the citizens actually came to the king and they complained. They said, like, the earth is not producing all the grains and whatever we need for our existence. Earth is not giving us. And Maharaj Prithu was contemplating. So, like, why is this happening? Then he realized. He said, like, the earth, actually they came and complained that, we have hunger and so on. And then Prithu Maharaj actually said, the earth is not giving all the grains and minerals and so on. And then Maharaj Yudhishthira actually, he chastised the earth. There's a whole story of like where earth, Maharaj Prithu is going to like following the earth, and the earth out of fear is actually running away from Maharaj Yudhishthira. And then Prithu is Maharaj Prithu, and he's actually about to kill the mother, kill earth because she's not doing. And the earth gives reasons. And then later on, the earth actually says, she gives 2 reasons why she's not producing all the seeds, the herbs, the grains, and so on. She says first she says that everyone actually here are non-devotees. They're not devotees. So why should I nourish all these people? So Mother Earth, first thing she said, they are all actually devoid of spiritual qualities. So there is no motivation for me to produce all these things. And second reason, she said, I am not protected by kings. It's the duty of the kings to protect the environment, to protect the earth. And if everyone is non-devotee and they are actually exploiting the earth, then why should I give anything? Like, I'm willing to give, that's my purpose. I'll give you everything. But if everyone is non-devotee, everyone is simply exploiting me, why should I do all this? She gives this reason. And then Prithu Maharaj actually, that she tells, you level me and you milk me. And then there's the entire episode of milking of Prithu Maharaj. But it's important to understand why, like, all the resources that we need, good fruits, vegetables, minerals, everything is actually just obtained by serving Lord Shri Krishna. If we are devotees, then the earth will produce everything in profusion. Right? So for those people who are into environment, we can explain our philosophy. Our philosophy is that first of all, that earth is a person. She's our mother, and we will never exploit our mother. That's why as devotees also, we should be more environmental conscious, because why would we exploit our mother? And the second point is we understand everything is happening by the will of the God, of Krishna. So if you serve Krishna, then everyone will protect it. Your earth will be happy, she'll produce everything, exploitation of the earth will stop. So these are 2 principles. Okay, next one. Text 6.
Nadhayo vyadhaya klesha deva bhutatma hetavaha ajata shatrav abhavan jantunam ragi harhichit.
Translation. Because of the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold.
So na adhya, so no anxiety, no vyadhya, no disease, no kleshaha, no trouble due to excessive heat or cold. Right? So this is the glory of Maharaj Yudhishthira King. Right? So we are all reading how Maharaj Yudhishthira Kingdom, because such a great devotee, and it actually particularly says Ajata Shatra, because he has no enemies. And who is a person who has no enemies? Only a devotee of Lord Shri Krishna can be a person who sees everyone as a servant of Krishna and can claim to have no enemies. So only such a person, because Maharaj Yudhishthira was such a person, then there were no anxieties, no diseases, and no klesha. Prabhupada in the purport actually points out, again he goes back to the point that how it's a duty of the king to give protection to all the animals. The cause of all these slaughterhouses, that karma is actually affecting all the citizens. All the suffering that we are seeing that comes in different forms of excessive heat, cold, anxiety, this COVID, diseases, everything that we see is because of our action of killing so many animals. The karmic reaction will be there. If we just unnecessarily killing all these animals, that karmic reaction will affect the entire humanity, all living beings. So the Prabhupada makes that point in the purport, right? And then he talks about how there has to be cooperation between man, nature, and God. Right? Daiva, Prakriti, and Jiva. These three aspects, there has to be a conscious cooperation between these three aspects, right? And what is our cooperation? We understand the nature, Prakriti, is actually a gift from Krishna, and we use all the aspects of nature in the service of the Lord. Then that is a perfect system of cooperation between man, nature, and God. So Prabhupada is making a point that man is allowed to make use of the property of the Lord for the service of the Lord. Okay, next, let's proceed.
Oshitva Hastinapure Masan Katipayan Harihi Suridam Cha Vishokaya Swashuscha Priya Kamyaya.
Srihari, Lord Sri Krishna, resided at the Hastinapura for a few months to pacify his relatives and please his own sister Subhadra.
Okay. Swasus means his own sister. Like Subhadra actually had lost her son Abhimanyu in the battle. So especially her name is actually mentioned. Subhadra is Krishna's sister. So he wanted to please Subhadra. And then also he resided in Hastinapura for a few months just to pacify his relatives. So Krishna did this entire plan of Krishna to establish Maharaj Yudhishthira as the emperor. And then, what was the consequence of all those killing was basically Krishna is there for them even when they were feeling that lamentation. He stayed for a few months and then he actually decided to. So Prabhupada, the Lord is always pleased to satisfy his devotees in any capacity. So because Maharaj Yudhishthira was still having that lamentation, the Lord said, okay, I'll stay for a few more months just to satisfy everyone. Okay. So one way, and some points I thought about for this verse is, see, Lord Krishna wanted to go to Hastinapur. We have been reading about that theme from last few chapters. If Lord wants to do anything, who can stop him? Right? In first verse of Bhagavatam, what do you read? Lord is independent. If he wants to do anything, he's not dependent on anyone. Who can stop? So Lord should have gone even that time, right? But why the Lord didn't go? Just to the point, because Lord is always pleased to satisfy. Right? So when we say Krishna as Achyuta, Achyuta means what? He actually never fails. He's infallible. But never fails in what? In keeping his promises? No, he breaks his promises. Right? And what else? Like in keeping a time schedule that, I'm supposed to come in Dwarka? No, he fails with that also. Right? He said, I will not pick up weapons. He picked up weapons. Achyuta means he is actually infallible in his protection to his devotees, infallible in his reciprocation to his devotees. That is real Achyuta quality of Krishna. Right? So that's the proof here that Krishna is staying here in Dwarka for 2 months. Okay, I'll just take a pause here quick. Let's see. So that is the first section. It's basically about Maharaj Yudhishthira's glorious rule. And we read about, just to summarize, that how Maharaj Yudhishthira was enlightened by Bhishma and Krishna, and how his knowledge was perfect knowledge, his doubts were eradicated, he ruled over the earth, he followed by his younger brothers, and then how when he was ruling, the clouds were showering water, the earth, the cows, everything was so perfect, rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, everything was just abundance, right? And no enemies, no adhyaha, no vyagdyaha, no kleshaha, no mental agonies, disease, excessive heat and cold. Everything was perfect in the kingdom when Maharaj Yudhishthira was ruling. Right? So that's the first section. Let's see any comments or any points that you liked in this point, or any questions. Then we go to the second section.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I really like the point. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. And without his sanction, nothing can be possible.
Thank you, Mataji. That's the essence. Right? If you consider the point of secret of success, actually once I read this somewhere else and I was looking at where in Prabhupada books Prabhupada talks of secret of success. Can anyone think of other places where Prabhupada says secret of success? So, okay, if you do this research, it's fun. So, if you see an entire Veda says you search secret of success. One is like, this reference where taking shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. But the most frequent repetition of secret of success is the Prabhupada has used to that verse, Yasya deve parabhakti tatha deve tatha guru tasya kadhita yartha prakashante mahatma. One who has implicit faith in both Guru and Krishna, to him all the imports of the Vedic literatures are revealed. To that verse, Prabhupada has used secret of success more than any other places. Having that implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, that is secret of success. So anyway, it's a side point. Okay, anything else? Yeah, Rohingya said, I didn't follow the order of spiritual master. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Lord Krishna is like wind, so we cannot see, but how he helps the devotee, that is the main point.
Yeah, very nice. He's just like a wind. You cannot see him, but everything is happening according to his.
Yes.
Thank you. Vijay Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I like the point, the last point that you were saying, that the Lord is always pleased to satisfy his devotees in any capacity. So he is Achyuta because he never fails to protect his devotees.
Nice.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I like the point when we discussed where do we take shelter in situations of trouble. Who do we take shelter of? I really like that point to meditate on.
Thank you. Yeah, we can think, right? If we are in charge, how do we deal with happiness distress? Krishna is in control, we accept that. How do we deal with happiness distress? And we see the result, right? Thank you. Rohingya Prabhu also made the point of personalism, right? How everything is personal.
Yeah, I said this, I wanted to say the same. Personalization of everything, like Mother Earth, cows are mother.
Prabhu, I also was looking at Prabhupada's chastisement or being heavy on when describing the one world state, how leaders should be trained and then a role model, so everything else will fall in place. And have the power to do it, not being a democracy always is the best thing.
Yeah. We see, like, in one of the purports, Prabhupada actually makes the point. It's 6. Prabhupada actually says that we should actually, in 5, the last sentence, Prabhupada says, we must look into the defects of modern civilization by comparison. That the government and the modern civilization should consider. Here is a real civilization, real kingdom, and then compared to that. Thank you. And I think Pranati Mata, you saying?
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I really like the point about looking at troubles differently in terms of why are we getting troubles and what is the lesson that Krishna wants us to learn. Because Krishna is always kind and merciful, but if we are going through a difficult situation, then it's only because he wants us to become better inside. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ready to move to the next section?
I just wanted to say I like the point that Krishna is not Achyuta necessarily in keeping his vows or his time schedule, but in protecting his devotees. And you said something else, protecting his devotees, and I missed that.
Reciprocation with his devotees.
And reciprocating that with his devotees. And I also had a question about, when you're talking about the wind, like the bamboos, when in the material world, naturally there's conflicts and it will cause like fire, but Krishna usually is impartial, like he doesn't get involved with things. So if we say he's the wind, then it's kind of like saying he's causing the conflicts. So how do we understand that?
Yeah. So Krishna, he is impartial. Yes, that's for sure. So when we consider the aspect of this material nature where there's fire, he doesn't personally get involved, but he does it through his agents, through the 3 modes of material nature, right? But the three modes of material nature or the Prakriti is also under control of Krishna, but not the direct. So Krishna is not personally involved, but through his agents, he's actually creating, he has created the material nature in such a way that there will be this misunderstanding, there will be dissension. And why? So that we realize that this material world is not a good place for us. Let's go back home, back to God. So Krishna, he directly gets involved with his devotees, but for the rest, all these conflicts and everything, through the agents, everything happens. Krishna, na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. He doesn't have to do anything, but just his agents take care of everything. Right? Swabhaviki jnana bala kriya cha. Swabhaviki, just by his own will. He just thinks about it, and his agents do everything.
She also said that all these sufferings, as we read in the previous chapters, is to create an exchange of rasa between Krishna and his devotees.
As long as, yes, as long as the devotees have that mood of turning to Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I really like the point that Krishna tests us both in success and problems. We think that Krishna is testing us only in problems, right? But he tests us in success too.
Very nice point to make. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so next section of the this chapter is going to deal with what is Bhagavatam all about? Rasa. So now there's going to be Rasa of Krishna with the residents of Hastinapur, basically with the Pandavas. Now he's leaving after such a long time. So how do they actually respond to Krishna leaving? How is that exchange of Rasa between Krishna and the Pandavas? Okay. So text 8.
Amantrachabhyanudgyatah parishvagyabhivadyatam aruroha vratam kaishchit parishvakto bhivaditaha. Pranati Mataji, if you're able.
Pratna Mataji.
Afterwards, when the Lord asked permission to depart the king, and the king gave it, the Lord offered his respects to Maharaj Yudhishthir by bowing down at his feet, and the king embraced him. After this, the Lord, being embraced by others and receiving their obeisances, got into his chariot.
So here it's very interesting. Aru Roha Ratham ascended the chariot. And one may see like he's ascending the chariot from chapter 7. Right? Starting out, there also it says he ascended the chariot. Why doesn't Krishna leave? Right? So here also it says like afterwards when Lord asked permission to depart. Why does Krishna need permission? He's Swarat, right? But it says Amantriya cha abhyanujataha. He took permission and being permitted, he received the permission. Yusuf said, okay, now you can go. That is how the Lord is controlled by his devotees. He came and he took permission and he said, now permission is granted, now I can do. And the king gave it, and the Lord, how did he deal with the Maharaj Yudhishthir? He bowed down and touched the feet of Yudhishthir. Now one may consider, like, yes, okay, Maharaj Yudhishthir, yes, he is the elder brother, right, elder cousin. So hence Krishna is reciprocating in that way. Okay, that is understandable. But Maharaj Yudhishthir also knows that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. How can Maharaj Yudhishthir allow Krishna to actually bow down to him? So what's the answer to this question?
Just to teach everyone.
Okay, so one thing is like we learn about etiquette, and this is how is Vedic etiquette, that we offer obeisances to our seniors. Yes, okay. But from Maharaj Yudhishthir's side, why did he allow? Like he knows Krishna is supreme personality of Godhead. Right?
Same like Bhishma Devi, he may be acting by the will of the Lord.
Okay, narrowing down the process for the Lord's pleasure. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, in spite of knowing that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, is accepting that mood of humble humility, or the mood of like Krishna bowing down, just because he knows that would actually give pleasure to Krishna. Prabhupada makes one sentence in the purport. The Lord takes pleasure when some of his devotees accept him as less important in terms of love. When Yudhishthira Maharaj, so that's the point that Prabhupada is explaining. That the devotees actually just say, okay, yes, I know Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, but by that, I can actually, Krishna will experience a kind of rasa, so I'm willing to do that. Right? So devotees are willing to give up their mood of awe and reverence just so that Krishna can experience a kind of a rasa. So Yudhishthira knew that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he considered that pleasing the Lord was more important than one's own respect. Consider pleasing the Lord, that's the most important. Actually, Prabhupada in this, I think it was, I think someone said about Queen Kunti, right? Or even, okay, Queen Kunti, starting with the speech. There's one of the lectures Prabhupada actually makes this point, and he says like how the devotees, they, in spite of knowing Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead, they do things that morally someone will say like, oh, how can you accept obeisances from the Lord, right? And then Prabhupada actually mentioned the story of the gopis. That's in the lecture you can hear that how Krishna, once he feigned sickness, Krishna saying, I'm so sick, and all the Vaidyas came and no one could actually cure him. And then Krishna himself said, well, the only thing who can cure me is if I get the dust from the lotus feet of my devotees, and if that is applied on my head. And Narad Muni was traveling everywhere. He went to everyone, all the devotees, and said like, oh, please, can you give me a little dust from your feet? Because Krishna is sick and that's the only cure. And everyone said, what? How can I give my dust to Krishna? Krishna's Supreme Personality of God. And when Narad Muni goes to Gopi, the Gopi says, yes, for sure, here, take. And Narad Muni says, aren't you afraid of going to hell by doing such an act? And the Gopi said, for Krishna's pleasure, even if you have to go to hell, we don't care. Okay. So that is, and Prabhupada says, that is the real mood of the devotee. For Krishna's pleasure, whatever sacrifices, whatever. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is accepting that obeisances from Krishna just because he knows it will give pleasure to Krishna. And after this, the Lord being embraced by others. So other people like Bhima and Arjun, they embrace, and Nakul and Sahadev, they offer their obeisances. And that way that Rasa was actually. Okay, now 9 and 10.
Subhadra Draupadi Kunti Virata Tanaya Tata Gandhari Dhritarashtrascha Yuyutsur Gotamo Yamo Vrikodarashcha Dhomyascha Triyomatsya Sutadayaha Nasehire Vimuyanto Virahams Sharinga Dhanvanaha.
At that time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, Kripacharya, Nakula, Sahadev, Bhishmasena, Abhimasena, Dhaumya, and Satyavati all nearly fainted because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Lord Krishna.
So Krishna is here referred as Sharanga Dhanvana. What is the name of Krishna's bow? Sharanga. Right? So Krishna's bow's name is called Sharanga, just like Arjun has Gandiva. So Krishna's bow is Sharanga. Sharanga Dhanvana is one actually as the bow of Sharanga. The other meaning that Prabhupada also gives is of Sri Krishna who bears a conch in his hand. So that's why I also know Sharanga. So two meanings are there for this Sharanga Dhanvana. Right? Now, the main point here, at the time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Virata Tanaya. Who is Virata Tanaya? The daughter of Virata. That's Uttara. Right? Then Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yutsa, then Yomo referring to Nakula Sahadev, Vikrudara is Bhima, Dhaumya, Striya, other. Matsya Suta Adaya. Matsya Suta, who is the daughter of fisherman? Satyavati. And so even Satyavati was actually there. So who was a Bhishma's stepmother. So all of them, what was there again? Na Sehire Vimuyanti. They could not tolerate Sehire Vimuyanti, and almost fainting. Viraha. Viraha means separation. They were all fainting in separation from Lord Shri Krishna. It was impossible for them to bear separation from Shri Krishna. And then
Prabhuji,
Prabhupada.
who is Dhaumya?
What, Prabhu?
Who is Dhaumya?
Prabhupada said Dhaumya. So Dhaumya, we read it before, right? Who is Dhaumya?
I heard the Dhaumya Rishi was there.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, Dhaumya was the priest of Yudhishthira Maharaj. He was always there with him.
Yes, exactly. He's a family priest of the Pandavas, right? Yeah, family priest of the Pandavas. We read this before in that list where all those personalities who came to
In the Bhishma, yes.
in that the name of Dhaumya is there, and there it is described with Dhaumya, how is the family royal priest for all the Pandavas. Okay, so for all of them, all nearly fainted, it was impossible for them to bear separation from Lord Sri Krishna. So after such a long time, Krishna is actually leaving. How can they bear that separation? And it's interesting that even like Dhritarashtra is there in this list. Right? So normally consider like all these personalities, Dhritarashtra, they're all feeling separation. So Purport, he actually makes the point that Lord Shri Krishna is so attractive for all the living beings, right? Especially for the devotees, that it's impossible for them to bear separation. So one may say that our natural position is, well, for us as conditioned jivas, we have no attraction for Krishna. Right? So Krishna is so attractive for living, especially for the impossible for them to tolerate separation. Prabhupada is actually, towards the end, he says, none of them who have ever contacted the Lord by direct communion or otherwise can leave him for a moment. That is the attitude of a pure devotee. So one may say, like, as conditioned jivas, we have no attraction for Krishna. But one way Prabhupada explains this, that we are, okay, right now, as conditioned jivas, like, what are they attracted to? They are attracted to wealth, beauty, knowledge, fame, and all those things. And who is the source of all these things, or abode of all strength, all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, all renunciation? It's Krishna. So our attraction to any of our opulence is actually truly our attraction for Krishna, but it is wrongly placed because we are not identifying the source of all those things. Right? The second point actually Prabhupada makes is, okay, we are attracted to other, man is attracted to woman, or all that attraction. So Prabhupada makes a point that even that attraction, a man is attracted to a woman attracted to a man. But as soon as the spirit soul leaves the body, then no longer there's an attraction to a dead body. Like, otherwise, there's like, oh, nice, beautiful woman, or nice, handsome man, or whatever. So if you see where is the real attraction, the attraction is because of the presence of spirit soul. Right? And where is the spirit soul? Spirit soul is part and parcel of Krishna. So everything that we are attracted to is actually our attraction to Krishna, but we don't realize it. And when we actually realize that actually our attraction is to Krishna, then we cannot tolerate separation from Krishna. The more we experience Krishna, the more we feel separation from Krishna. And this is so true in our practical spiritual life also. The more we get a taste for Krishna consciousness, due to some reason, if we are not able to associate with devotees, the more we'll feel the separation. So the separation is actually a sign of our progress in Krishna consciousness. Like we are traveling somewhere and work, I have to travel to here and here and have a tour for 1 week, 2 weeks, and I'm missing association of devotees, prasadam, and all these things. Then when we feel that separation, that is actually a sign that we have attraction for Krishna consciousness. And here, by actually saying that they could not tolerate the separation, shows how much love they have for Krishna. Right? So anyway, this aspect of separation is Prabhupada and Purport talks about the separation of the gopis of Vrindavan. Right? When Krishna left Vrindavan, then the gopis were like, so Prabhupada says, they express, Prabhupada talks about like, yeah, Krishna left Vrindavan, and then later on, after a long time, from Dwarka, when there was a solar eclipse in Kurukshetra, then Krishna came from Dwarka and with all like kings and that royal robes, and then from the Brajvasis came and they met at this place of Kurukshetra at the solar eclipse, and there the gopis, they express their separation from Krishna. And Prabhupada is referring to that section and says that is so heart-rendering, where we hear about the Radharani's words with Krishna, and that section is so beautiful. In Chaitanya Charitamrita also, like we read about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, particularly during the Rath Yatra pastime, where he actually sings that verse, Ya Kaumara, where he actually makes a point that this is the same moonlit night, but that's like where Radharani is saying, like she's saying that Krishna, I want you back in Vrindavan. You are here, but you are not the same Krishna. I want that Krishna in Vrindavan, holding a flute with a peacock feather, not this Krishna who has this robes of a king. So, and also I want to go back to the banks of the Revati, like Yamuna. So there she actually expresses that mood of separation. And the point is, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us what? He's actually teaching us this mood of love in the mood of separation. In the mood of separation. And if you remember our first class of Bhakti Vaibhava, we discussed this point about how our Bhagavatam is the highest philosophy, and second, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching Bhagavatam, and hence Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching is the highest teaching. So these three aspects of that. Bhagavatam is the highest, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching Bhagavatam, and hence Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching the highest philosophy. So if you see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching Bhagavatam, how can we understand that? We see these sections where there's so much separation that the devotees are experiencing from Krishna, and we read about the separation, and it's the same separation that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching, how we can develop that separation from Krishna, the mood of separation from Krishna. And there, anyway, so Chaitanya Charitamrita also explains is that there are 4 different kinds of separation. I'm going to teach in Madhya Lila talks about there's a Purva Raga, there's Man, Pravasa, Prema, Vachitya. And the main thing, how can we develop our separation from Krishna? Sometimes I remember when I was doing Sunday Feast class, someone asked this, and at that time I was like, how can we develop our separation from Krishna? And I was thinking, like, the problem is we have not tasted Krishna. We have not experienced Krishna. That's why we are not feeling separation. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually makes a point, how can we develop the mood of separation from Krishna? Well, we have to develop that mood of separation in the mood of Purva Raga. Purva Raga means that anticipation of meeting Krishna. So when we are studying Bhagavatam, when we are studying the sections, then we can actually think about, yes, I'm reading about Krishna. Krishna's character is revealed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I'm just waiting, when can I finally meet that Krishna? So we are studying Bhagavatam in that mood of, when will I finally meet this personality who is actually described here in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the way we develop our separation from Krishna. So, the problem that we are not feeling separation means that we experience Krishna. And the moment we experience Krishna, the moment we feel that, oh, the separation is intolerable. Okay, now further, let's go ahead.
Satsangan mukta dusango hatum notsahate buddha kirtyamanam yasho yasya sakrid akarnya rochanam tasmyasta liya parta saheran viraham katam darshana sparsha sampulapa shayanasana bhojanai.
Rohini Nandan Prabhu reading? I think we missed him.
Rohini Nandan Prabhu? I guess you can go, Mataji.
The intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they have heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation? For they had been intimately associated with his person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting and dining with him.
So this first verse is elaborating on their mood of separation. So what did we read in the previous word? Right, all these different names were described, and this it was impossible for them to bear their separation from Krishna. Now, how intense was their separation is further elaborated. So in this verse, it says, it gives a comparison. It says, Sat Sangha Mukta Sangha. So those who are Buddha, those who are intelligent, they take the association of devotees and they Mukta Sangha, they become free from the bad association. Right? And when they have become that Buddha in that, in that good association and free from bad association, then na utsahate. They never give up what? Kirtamanya, Kirtya, Manam. They never give up glorifying the holy name. And Sakrit, even once. So basically here is making the point that those who are intelligent, who have understood the Supreme Lord in Satsanga, and they have given up to Sangha, then they cannot never avoid Kirtyamanam, never avoid hearing, even though they have heard only once. So even once someone has tasted Krishna, right, he cannot give up the separation. Right? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Bhajan, he says, Ek bar mate rasa, rase matore. Like just once you taste the holy name. Once you taste the holy name, then you will not stop chanting. So here the verse is said that once we taste Krishna through Hari Katha or Hari Kirtan, then we cannot separate from Krishna. What to talk? That is a situation of, even once if someone has heard Krishna, what to talk of the Pandavas who are what? Darshanam, Sparsha, Samlapa, Shayana, Asana, Bhojanahi. That means what? They actually have darshanam, they see Krishna face to face, they are touching Krishna, they are conversing with Krishna, they are sleeping with Krishna, they are sitting with Krishna, they are dining with Krishna. How can they give up separation? Even a person, once he comes in contact with Krishna, he cannot separate from Krishna. What to talk about their level of separation? This is showing how intense is their love for Krishna and how intense was the separation that they were experiencing from Krishna. So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually explains. Prabhupada in purport makes a point that how every living entity, our constitutional position is that of service. Right? We are all, in Bhagavad Gita introduction, Prabhupada makes this point. Our position is that of service. But right now, who are we serving? Because Prabhupada says so nicely in the second sentence, he said, he is obliged to serve by force the dictates of illusory material energy in different phases of sense. Because we have the nature of service, who are we serving now? Because we are not serving Krishna, we are forced to serve Maya in different phases of sense gratification. Right? And that different phases comes in terms of home, country, family, society, wealth, and so on. But there is no end to this kind of service for sense gratification. Right? And Prabhupada makes a point, because of that we are entangled. See, only way we can get satisfied is service to Krishna. Other than that, we are forced to serve under the clutches of Maya. And in that, there's so many ways of service. And it's like dushpurina lenacha, just like pouring fuel onto fire. It's just going to increase. And it's like never ending this cycle, right? But how can we actually get out of this entanglement? The only hope is association with pure devotees. So Prabhupada is making the point. So in the association of devotees and giving up the association of non-devotees, then when we hear Krishna Katha, when we come in contact with the holy name, that's the time when it breaks our entanglement in this material association. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in this purport, he says, without the association of devotees, bad association will not disappear. Right? So we often focus on this point that, we have to give up bad association. Right? But how can we give up? Somehow or other, we need some kind of association. So we will take the positive devotee association. That's the only way we can give up bad association. We lose taste for all the bad association. Right? And then second point that Chakravarti Pad is actually saying, that bad association causes three things: attachment, hatred, and bad confidence. We get attached to this material world, attached to all the all the negative things that the people we are associating with are doing with attachment. It causes hatred and then causes bad qualities in the development of person. Okay, text 13.
Sarve te nimishar akshais tam anudruta chetasaha vikshanta sneha sambadha bechalus tatra tatraha.
Text 13. All their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity.
Can you imagine that intensity of separation? Like verse after verse, we are just deepening that intensity of separation. It uses the word animishahi, without twinkling of their eyes. They were looking at Krishna like with wide open eyes. And this is like a famous verse that we read in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. The gopis, they are cursing Brahma. They say, oh Brahma, you're not a good creator. Why? Because you have given us these eyelids. And these eyelids are actually obstructing our vision of Krishna. Can you imagine? Like we don't even notice when we blink our eyes. Like for us, it's like every 6 seconds they say we blink our eyes. We never notice we blink our eyes. The gopis are saying this blinking of the eyes, that one moment is actually causing so much separation because we cannot see Krishna. That is their intensity of love. And when we read these points, we think like, what is my love for Krishna? Nothing compared to that level where we actually think a blinking of an eye is a hindrance to their bhakti, to our vision of the Lord. So here it says they had so much, the Krishna is leaving and they couldn't just stop seeing, relishing Krishna and say, oh, now we will not be able to see Krishna. And in that way, they were like eyes wide open, they were looking at Krishna without blinking. And they were moving hither and thither. Chakravarti says, wherever Krishna was going, they were like following Krishna. Prabhupada in his lecture, he actually makes a point that, when someone is anxious, they walk up and down, right? And, what should I do? What should I do? And then like they are walking hither and thither. And Prabhupada says, similarly, all these people were actually walking hither and thither. What should we do now? What should we do? Krishna is leaving. What can we do? That was their mood. And then it says so nicely, it says, Sneha Sabadha. It says all their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. Right? So there was a fire on the pot. What is a fire? The fire of separation. Right? And their heart, which is in the pot of attraction, was actually melting. But now Krishna is actually leaving. Right? So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually says that Krishna is naturally attractive to all jivas, like how I was explaining the point. That any attraction we are actually feeling is actually truly our attraction for Krishna, but we don't realize it. And then Prabhupada makes a point, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetanam. Right? Of all the living entities, there's one supreme eternal. Right? That is Krishna. So we all, our main attraction is actually to Krishna. Right? And then Prabhupada says, once this relationship is even slightly revived, the conditioned soul at once becomes free from mind. Even one slightly a relationship with Krishna is reawakened in our heart. That's it. We are overcome. We are freed from the illusion of material association and become mad after association of them. So when we read such sections of Bhagavatam, one may think that I have like no love for Krishna. I have like what level of love are we reading here? What is our? It says even slightly revive our relationship with Krishna, then one will become mad after Krishna. One may think that means I have not even slightly revived my attraction for Krishna relationship. Otherwise, my influence of Maya would have been over and I've been mad after Krishna. So our Shastras give both the perspectives. One perspective is these verses where we actually read and say, I have no love for Krishna. I have a long journey. I need to get serious in my spiritual life. I need to go deeper in my bhakti. I need to work more harder in my spiritual life. So those are actually good for us to give us that impetus to get us out of that mood of complacency, just becoming complacent. Then this actually, okay, we have to go deeper. And at times when spiritual life seems more harder, then we remember other sections of the Bhagavatam, where it says, Oh, Krishna is so merciful that even for Putana, he actually gave her the position of the mother. Or even for Gajendra, he actually, though he's an animal, he delivered. Or that verse, Hirata Pulindra, where Krishna says, even those who are most fallen, Krishna is actually giving them. So in our spiritual life, we can see if sometimes Krishna consciousness seems very hard, we can think, meditate more. How Krishna is so kind, he's so merciful. So though I'm a rascal, Krishna will somehow keep me going. And then at times when we get complacent in a sadhana, then we can meditate on these words. Oh, I have such a long way to go. How can I go deeper? How can I go deeper? So both sections are clear. The last sentence of this verse in Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam trains the conditioned soul to this stage of perfection by submissive hearing from the pure devotee. Yes, it is a long way where we actually think, oh, blinking of our eyes is actually a hindrance to see Krishna. What is the solution? Srimad Bhagavatam is training us to this stage of perfection, where we will come to the stage just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, where we feel the separation from Krishna and become mad after Krishna. We can say this among devotee circles. And what is our goal in life? We want to become mad. If you tell people outside, they'll be like, what? It's a gone case, there's no hope for it. But in devotee circle, we understand. Our goal is just to become mad for Krishna. That's it. And Bhagavatam is going to train us how to become mad for Krishna. Okay. Further, we read more about the emotions. Text 14.
Nyarundhan ud galad bhashpam otkantyad devaki sute niryat yagran nobhadram iti syad bandhavastriyaha.
The female relatives, whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna, came out of the palace. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. They feared that tears could cause misfortune at the time of departure.
So it says very clearly, Striya Bandhava. Striya Bandhava referring to the ladies, the female relatives. Okay? And their eyes were flooded. Udgalatat. Udgalat means overflowing actually. Their eyes were overflowing with tears of separation. But they Nirudhan. They actually checked that with great difficulty. Why? Because they were thinking, Krishna is leaving. Maybe it will be inauspicious. Tears are normally considered inauspicious. So maybe that tears will be a misfortune at the time of departure. We see the mood that where they are like, thinking that they're not thinking Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, because they'll be like, oh, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how can be any misfortune? They're just thinking Krishna, they've heard so much about Krishna, they're thinking, oh, if he goes, there'll be any misfortune. Let's just control our tears. Right? But their tears were actually overflowing, and then with great difficulty, they were trying to hold down. So this point about emotions, I was thinking about the point like in this verse, that if you see our journey of emotions, right, initially we don't have any emotions for Krishna. But as we progress in bhakti, then we get little traces of emotions for Krishna. And at some moment in our spiritual life, okay, we get this, Krishna gives us that special moment where we feel all of a sudden like special mood, and we start crying, we feel that emotions for Krishna. Emotions build up. And then beyond that stage, right, is when emotions are coming, but we are controlling the emotions for Krishna's pleasure. Right? So we are actually progressing. We want to develop our emotions. Like we sing prayers, there's a Nayam Galadashrudharaya. Oh Krishna, when your eyes be decorated with tears when I chant your holy name. We pray for such emotions. But beyond that, we come to a stage that, yes, I want those emotions, but if that emotions is a hindrance for my service to Krishna, then perfect example is Daruka in the Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada actually talks about this. And Daruka, who's a servant of Lord Krishna, he actually was fanning Krishna, right? Once he was fanning Krishna, and then when he was fanning Krishna, he was feeling so much ecstasy for Krishna. He was feeling so much ecstasy for Krishna that it comes in a section of Anubhav. Right? so much ecstasy, but he actually felt, oh, I'm feeling so much ecstasy, but he just controlled that emotions because he was thinking, if I get so much that emotions come, then how will I continue my service of finding Krishna? So he just controlled his emotions. Right? We see the same thing with Srila Prabhupada. Like, in there's one story of Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur. He was giving a lecture, and all of a sudden, started like tears were flowing from eyes. Like devotees were standing there, they said it was just like syringes. The tears were flowing from the eyes of Prabhupada. And then devotees were shocked. They didn't know what to do. Like they had not seen Prabhupada in that way. And it was, I don't know how much time, it was like for the devotees, they felt a long time that Prabhupada was in the state. And then after that, the Sri Vikram Swami Maharaj, he started chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then later on, like devotees, they had, all the disciples, they had a discussion. When Prabhupada was in a very ecstatic state, maybe our chanting Hare Krishna disturbed it. Disturbed it. And they went to Prabhupada and said, like, Prabhupada, when you actually have these moods of ecstasy, what should we do? And Prabhupada, in a very humble mood, he said, like, oh, that doesn't happen often. He just like kind of rejected it. Like that. Because they were wanting to know, should we chant Hare Krishna or should we just wait? Like, whether they did right by chanting Hare Krishna or not. But Prabhupada's main point is, even though there were emotions, Prabhupada controlled the emotions because he said, preaching Krishna consciousness, that is the most important. Talking about Krishna, that is more important. That will give more pleasure to Krishna than my expressing, experiencing those emotions. And if you see, like, there are some spiritual groups where they like, the Babas, they come and they have expressive emotions and tears, they'll cry in public, and but this is like something very private. Like our love for Krishna is very private. Why would you openly express that? But you have all these false gurus, they come and they're crying and all those things. But here we see, like, beyond that stage of emotions is where we actually think, what is the thing that will give Krishna pleasure? Right? So it is like gradual progression, and this goes beyond this. Okay. So so that's basically this part. But let's just read a few more verses. There's not so much explanation required. This is basically okay. This will do 15.
Mridanga Shanka Beryascha Vina Panava Gomuka Dunduryanaka Gantadya Nedur Dundu Bhayastata.
While the Lord was departing from the palace of Hastinapura, different types of drums like the mridanga, dola, nagra, dunduri, and dundubi, and flutes of different types, the veena, gomukha, and beri, all sounded together to show him honor.
How many different musical instruments are there? Mridanga, dhola, nagra, dunduri, dundubi, flutes, different kinds of flutes, veena, gomukha, beri. Everything was sounded at now Krishna, actually, making it very auspicious for Krishna's journey. Next verse.
Prasadha Shikaranudha Kurunaryo Didikshaya Vavrishu Kushumai Krishnam Prema Vridha Smitekshanaha. I think Arundhati Mataji.
Arundhati Mataji.
Okay, Divyanita Lila Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Sorry. Out of loving desire to see the Lord, the royalties of the Kurus got up to the top of the palace, and smiling with affection and shyness, they showered flowers upon the Lord.
So here, the royal ladies of Kurus, so particularly saying Kuru Narya, they actually went on top of the palace, and with affection and shyness, they were actually showered flowers. So Prabhupada in the purport, he focuses on this aspect of shyness. If you remember, in the previous chapter, when Bhishma Pitama was talking of three dharma, the main point that Prabhupada focuses on is that shyness. So Prabhupada elaborates the entire purport on shyness. And Prabhupada said, shyness is a particular extra-natural beauty of the fair sex, and it commands respect from the opposite. And Prabhupada refers to a story, like you hear this. Prabhupada in his class also says that he was sitting with one of his friends, and he tells the name of his friend. I don't remember right now, but they both were sitting, and they were kind of near the entranceway. And the sweeper lady, wanted to walk in to do her cleaning. Right? But out of shyness, she was just standing like this. And just because she was in that mood, she was just standing. Prabhupada and his friend, they said, okay, we have to move out to allow her to come. And Prabhupada was saying, like, though she is like, just like a sweeper lady, which may be like considered maybe, a little lower, but still, just because of the shyness, they just had to say, okay, we submit, we'll move out, let her come and go. Like Prabhupada refers, and he says in the purport also, a sweeper woman commanded the respect of many respectable gentlemen simply by manifesting a lady's shyness. So the entire purport Prabhupada talks about, how shyness is actually, it commands respect from the opposite sex. So these ladies, they went on top of the roof, and in shyness, they were actually showering flowers. Prabhupada says shyness is a gift of nature of the fair sex. It enhances their beauty and prestige. And the last sentence Prabhupada says, and shyness is a check to the unrestricted mixing. It's a nature's gift and must be utilized. So Prabhupada in the second paragraph, he actually makes a point that how, our cause of attachment, Sriya, he actually makes that how a real cause of attachment in the material world is attraction to the opposite sex, right? But that, and Prabhupada talks about woman is considered to be fire, man is considered to be butter. So that attraction is actually the cause of bondage in the material world. But he actually says that shyness is a check to that mixing of butter and fire, and it's a nature's gift, and it must be actually. So, okay, 17.
Sitata patram jagraha mukta dama vibhushitam ratnadandam gudakesha priya priyatamasyaha. Mataji, you're muted.
At the time, Arjuna, the great warrior and the conqueror of sleep, who is the intimate friend of the most beloved Supreme Lord, took up an umbrella which had a handle of jewels and was embroidered with lace and pearls.
So Gudakesha, referring to Arjuna's conquest, so who is the intimate friend of Lord. He took up an umbrella with the handle of jewels, and Prabhupada talks about this, how golds, jewels, all these things, there was so much there. The umbrella itself had all jewels. Imagine. And now, like, to have a jewel is like a rare thing. And Prabhupada says, when they are all nature's gifts and they are produced by hills, oceans, and so on. When man does not waste his valuable time in producing unwanted things in the name of necessities, then we'll get abundance of all these. So if we stop making these unnecessary necessities, then nature will give us so much of these jewels and so on. Okay, 18.
Udava satyakishchaiva vyajane paramadbhute vikiryamana kushumai reje madhupati pati. Gopinathacharya Prabhupada and Gagandeep was away.
Uddhava and Satyaki began to fan the Lord with decorated fans, and the Lord, as the master of Madhu, seated on scattered flowers, commanded them along the road.
So, Bhagavatam is also like in our mind, you can actually think of the image that, Krishna is now, he went on, he's sitting on top on the chariot, and then how the Pandavas and all these people, we read the whole list of Draupadi, Subhadra, they are all feeling so much separation that they cannot blink their eyes, and they're like tears are coming, but they're holding. Then all these, like in your mind, you can picturize the whole thing. And all these musical instruments are playing, and then the ladies, they went on top of the roof, they're throwing flowers and in the mood of shyness. And then Uddha, Arjuna is right next to Krishna, he's carrying an umbrella with like jewels. And then Uddhav and Satyaki, they're fanning the Lord, It's so beautiful, like just like, if you can picturize this in your mind, it's such a wonderful image. And, when you read Bhagavatam in that mood, then at the final moment, one of these pictures will come to our mind, and we'll like, back to Krishna. Okay. Text 19. The last verse, and then we'll take a break.
Ashruyanta shisha satyas tatra tatra dvijeritaha nanurupascha nirgunasya gunatmanaha.
It was being heard here and there that the benedictions begin paid to Krishna were neither befitting nor unbefitting because they were all for the Absolute, who was now playing the part of a human being.
Ashisha benediction, Satyaha, truth. So, the people, the learned Brahmanas, Dvija Irata, they were chanting these blessings. But it's so poetic, this word. It says, Anurupa, Anurupaha. Right? So, Anurupa and Anurupaha. So, befitting, fitting. So, the translation says, so, the learned Brahmanas, they were chanting all these Satya benedictions upon the Lord. But these benedictions, they were befitting, nor unbefitting. So one may say, like, they are befitting in the sense that, yes, they are considering Krishna as, they're not considering Krishna as Supreme Personality of God. They're saying Krishna is playing the role of a human being, and hence these blessings are very nice, very befitting. But at the same time, Krishna is actually a Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what benedictions does he need? He is the source of all benedictions. So those benedictions were that way unfit. So they were befitting, but at the same time, they were actually unfit. And the words that actually use the Sanskrit word, that when you consider Krishna as nirgunasya, right, with no material qualities, then these benedictions were unfit. Right? Because, who can give benedictions to the absolute personality of God? But if you consider the Lord to be gunatmakaha, who is actually under the modes, like playing the role of a human, then these benedictions were actually very befitting. Right? And Prabhupada in the purport, he actually says that all these contradictions, that befitting, not befitting, they all get, they lose all contradiction and they become transcendental when they are actually related to Krishna. And Prabhupada in the purport, he actually gives the example of Krishna as a thief. Normally, a thief is considered a low position. Who would, as soon as you say a thief, that means an insult. But Krishna as a thief is actually worshipped as a thief. He's worshipped as Makhan Chor. So there's this beautiful bhajan which I like. I think many of you know. We'll just read this translation very quickly, and then we'll take a break. So I think many of you may know this bhajan, Chaurashtakam, right? So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually makes this point that Krishna as a butter thief is actually worshipped by his devotees. So we'll just read how Krishna is worshipped in the mood of as a thief. So here, you can see my screen, I think. Yeah. I offer my respectful obeisances to that foremost of thieves, who is famous in Braj as the butter thief, who steals the gopis' clothes, and who, for those who take shelter of him, steals the sins which have occurred for so many lives. And so such an expert thief, he's stealing butter, he's stealing gopis' clothes, and then he'll take away all our sins. I offer my respectful obeisances to the foremost of thieves, who steals Srimati Radharani's heart, who steals the dark luster of a fresh rain cloud, and who steals all the sins and sufferings of those who take shelter at his lotus feet. He turned his surrendered devotees into paupers and wandering homeless beggar. Alas, such a fearsome thief has never been seen or heard in all the three worlds. Mere utterance of his name purges one of a mountains of sins. Such an astonishing, wonderful thief I have never seen or heard of anywhere. O thief, having stolen my wealth, my honor, my senses, my life, and my everything, where can you run to? I have caught you with the rope of my devotion. You cut the terrible noose of Yamraj, you sever the dreadful noose of material existence, and you slash everyone's material bondage, but you are unable to cut the knot fastened by your own loving devotees. O stealer of my everything, O thief, today I have imprisoned you in the miserable prison house of my heart, which is very fearful due to a terrible darkness of my ignorance. And there for a very long time you will remain, receiving appropriate punishment for your crimes of thievery. O Krishna, thief of my everything, the noose of my devotion remaining forever tied, you will continue to reside in the prison house of my heart, because I will not release you for millions of aeons. So such a beautiful bhajan, Chaurashtakam, Bilomangal Thakur. But the point that Prabhupada is actually saying in the purport, that Krishna is a thief, but he's worshipped as a thief. And this bhajan is so nicely saying how Krishna is the foremost of all thieves, but this is a thief that I have actually captured in my core of my heart. Right? So that is this scene. The next section is basically now and the ladies who have gone on top of the roof of Hastinapur, they actually are saying prayers. So we'll do that in the next section. In I think half an hour we can complete that. We'll complete this chapter. And the last section is just Krishna proceeding towards Dwarka. That is just, you can just read this, just very straightforward. Just read the translations quickly. Okay. So let's see, any comments on this section that we read. So we discussed about, we started off from reading about all the mood of separation, right? So first of all, like we read about how Krishna, he took permission to depart, and how Maharaj Yudhishthira gave him permission, how Krishna bowed down to Maharaj Yudhishthira, and how Yudhishthira actually, accepted that obeisances, and how Krishna reciprocated with the remaining Pandavas, then how all the other personalities, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, how they were feeling so much separation, and the separation has been described that even once someone comes in contact with Krishna, he cannot, leave Krishna. And what to talk of these Pandavas who have been like touching him, conversing with him, having food with him, sleeping with him, and so on. Their hearts were melting with attraction. They could not even blink their eyes, and tears were flowing from their eyes, overflowing, but they were there to control those emotions just so that Krishna's journey may be very auspicious. And then all these musical instruments are playing, the ladies are showering flowers, and then we read about how these sages, the Brahmanas, are reciting prayers which are fitting and also befitting and also unfitting to Krishna. Arjun is carrying the umbrella, Uddhav, Satiki are fanning the Lord, and in that way, Krishna is ready on his journey. And then another section of prayers. Okay. So let's see any comments, realizations from this section.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, please.
I just want to make sure I understood it correct. So we can express emotions to Krishna. So cry for Krishna, that's what it is. But don't do it publicly. That's what it is. Did I understand correctly?
Yes.
But when emotions come,
yeah,
it's hard to...
it is hard to control. Like, that's the thing in Prabhupada's case also. Like, even in Atlanta, there's a story of Prabhupada when he came and there was a Gaur Naita. It's very famous. Where Prabhupada just chanted, Parama Karuna Pahudvi Jana Nitai Gaur. And he saw that. And it's like very short. Prabhupada talks like 3-4 minutes is just the lecture because there's so much in emotion. But we don't, like, it's a very private relationship with Krishna. So as far as possible, we try to control. We control the emotions. Like, why are we like something personal between us and Krishna? We don't want to publicly show. But in case it comes out, we cannot control, then that is just, like sometimes the mood is like, at least in our beginning stage of Krishna consciousness, that we feel ecstatic and some tears come. They're like, oh yeah, people will think I'm such a nice devotee, and crying for Krishna. Like things that so that purification will happen. But at a stage like when the emotions are pure and it's just coming out, and you cannot normally, like, people just like try to hide, but if it's in public, like the whole point is we don't want to publicly express those emotions.
Thank you, bro. That is called Anubhav?
No. Anubhav is one of those emotions, right? And the Anubhav example I gave with Daruka, right? But even there are different kinds of, like we discussed this in the previous session, right? There are 5 kinds of bhavas.
Right.
So it could be any of these, right? It's just one expression of that bhava.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
I really liked the example of how Vyasadeva has written that the heart was melting like a pot on the fire. It is such a wonderful, like, poetic excellences of his, I literally draw it.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
So, it is very beautiful for me to visualize that. It's like how in Damodar Leela also the pot was melting because Krishna,
It's so nice actually. This is wonderful actually. One is you picturized it and you drew it, so now that's a point that you remember. Second thing you did that's wonderful is you're comparing with other places in the Shastra where we read something similar, right? And that's a way of studying. Like you see, oh, this point, shyness, we read it in the previous chapter. It was there. 1927 talks about this, and we relate different sections of the Shastra. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a break then. We'll just take a 4-5 minutes break. One point about next week. So next week, His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is coming. So he'll be here in town. So I was, he was asking what topics you have. So I was thinking that he can actually give our Bhakti Vaibhav next week's session. So he's agreed. And the way he'll do it, he said, like, because one chapter it takes a long time, he'll do Saturday and Sunday 1.5 hour sessions each. So it is in person. Saturday is at the Gopinath Acharya Prabhu and Pratnamati. Sunday we will finalize. So both are in-person sessions. So you can come in person, and he'll do chapter 11 of the Srimad Bhagavatam in 2 sessions. So again, I think we'll start 7:30 to 9. Okay, so that will be for next week, and then after that week, Amarendra Prabhu will be in town the week after that, but he said that he would not do a Sunday morning class since Saturday is Radha Ashtami. So we'll continue our we'll keep the flow going. Okay. Any other general questions about I know I have your exams, which are not even like looked at those then much to me, but maybe this week will be great. Then a few of you have not completed your shloka, so if you want to give that. I know a couple of you have asked me for a time to do it, but I have been so busy that. But this week maybe Sarovit, we can do it. And anything else?
What about essays?
Yeah, third essay is due, right? So when do you want to submit? Is end of the month good? Yeah. So maybe by the end of the month, if you can submit your essays by end of this month. And also I was thinking if you can give your shloka, like, also on Zoom you could, because it's hard to get in-person time. Maybe on Zoom you can do it. Just close your eyes and just, I know some devotees, just close your eyes, tell the shloka. It's any 12 with translations. And even the translation, if you are not exact word to word, even if you get the whole meaning, that's also fine. Okay. Anything else, practical points? So
Prabhu, Saturday, will there be a online session too? Like,
yeah, both the sessions, if you cannot attend in person, we'll do Zoom also on the same Zoom.
Early morning.
7:30 to 9. So by 31st August, that is end of the month, please submit your essays, and if you can finish your shloka recitation. So, okay, so 5 minutes break, and let's come back at 10:10. We'll do the last section. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Please come back. Let's continue. So we're going to discuss 10 shlokas. Basically, those are the prayers. Let's see. We'll do that. So let's start off with text number 20. Everyone is back. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Okay, so you asked about the timing. So Saturday, Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. It'll be also on this same Zoom link. And Saturday is Gopinath Prabhu and Pratna Mata's house. And Sunday will be at Divanita Leela Mata's house. Okay, so let's start. So text number 20.
Anyoyam asit sanjalpa utama shloka chetasam koravendra purastrinam sarvashruti manoharaha.
Absurd in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is sung in select poetry, the ladies on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapura began to talk of him. This talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. Hare Krishna.
So here Uttama Shloka referring to one who is actually glorified by the choices of words. Right? So Prabhupada also says Uttama. Tama means darkness. Uttama means something that is beyond all darkness. It is actually glorified by some words which are actually transcendental. Right? So these Anonyam are among each other. Right? So they were actually talking among each other and they were glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they were chetasam. Their hearts were absorbed in that way. Right? Chetasam. And it's okay. And it's particularly referring to the ladies. It says Sri Nam, all the ladies. And their glorification of Krishna is actually more attractive than Sarva Shruti, more attractive than all the Vedas. Right? Krishna is more attracted by these sweet words of these ladies than all the chanting of the Vedas. So that is, this talk was more attractive than the hymns of Vedas. Prabhupada in the purport talks about these bhajans by our acharyas. And he says like how Narottam Das Thakur has written all these beautiful bhajans. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur had actually said that these bhajans of Narottam Das Thakur are actually are as good as Shastra. Prabhupada says to be considered as good as Vedic mantras. Right? Actually, they are more glorious than all the Vedic mantras because the acharyas, they express their so much love and their heart into these bhajans. So when we are singing these bhajans, we are actually trying to imbibe the mood of all these acharyas, of those particular in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line, all these acharyas, we imbibe their mood. That is so wonderful. So Prabhupada is actually saying that language is actually immaterial. That even though they may be singing these bhajans in like simple languages, that doesn't matter. The main thing is the mood, the bhav that they are expressing, right? So similarly, these ladies, maybe they are not so expert in chanting like expert Sanskrit shlokas, but you'll see now in this section how even their knowledge and everything is like so high level. But the point that Prabhupada is saying that even if it is not, it's just like simple from our words. We just say, "Oh Krishna," and then we say, offer a sweet prayer. That is actually more pleasing to Krishna than doing all this, Vedic mantras. Oh Sahasra Purusha, all those Vedic mantras. And even in 10th canto, there is this whole story of the Yagic Brahmanas, right? Where all the Brahmanas, everything, all these elaborate yagya, swaha, swaha, and then Krishna sent, Krishna and Balram, they sent for the cowherd boys to ask for food, and they were like, then they don't like look at them, they just like kind of ignored them, right? And then they went back and they said, like, we didn't get anything. Then Krishna again sent them and said, go to the wives of all the Brahmanas. And these wives, though they were not doing any sacrifices or anything, they, as soon as they heard that Krishna and Balram are near and they're hungry, whatever food was there prepared for the yajna, they packed everything, took everything, left, and they just went straight to Krishna. Right? The section is so beautiful. They came, they saw Krishna, and Krishna was like, had his hand in Balram, and he was trailing like a flower. It's a very, very sweet section. But it shows that love is what that actually matters, even though the composition may not be so accurate. And we see the same story of a South Indian Brahmana, right? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and embraced him. There were others who were expertly chanting Sanskrit slokas, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and embraced this person who couldn't chant the slokas properly. Who said, "I'm illiterate. I didn't know how to read Bhagavad Gita." But when I see Krishna driving the chariot of Arjun, I just cry in that mood. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "You have understood Bhagavad Gita. You are the true. You have truly. You are the true lover of God." Okay. So let's start. So now next 10 verses are their prayers. So let's start 21.
Savai kilayam purusha puratano ya eka asid avishesha atmani agre gunebhyo jagad atmanishvare nimilitatman nishisupta shaktishu.
They said, here he is, the original personality of Godhead, as we definitely remember him. He alone existed before the manifested creation of the modes of nature, and in him only, because he is the Supreme Lord, all living beings merge, as if sleeping at night, their energy suspended.
So they say he is that original personality, Purushaha Puratana, right? He is that original personality. He's a Purusha, but he's Puratana. He's the original, original personality of Godhead. As we definitely remember him, Savai Kilayam. How do they remember him? Chakravarti Pad is actually making the point that they had heard about Krishna. Prabhupada also makes that point. And Chakravarti Pad is saying that they actually, Vyasdev actually spoke to them about Krishna. So they had remembered Krishna in that way. And now they're saying, oh, this is that same original Supreme Personality of God. And then he alone existed before the creation, before the three modes of material nature. It was he only, right? So this is actually very similar to that Chatushloki Bhagavatam, the first verse where it says, Aham evasam evagre nanya yad asad sad asad param pashad aham yad echatya yo vashisheta somya. Right? That verse on the first 2:9:33 actually said, Aham evasam evagre, that only I existed before this entire creation. Right? Nanya yat sad asat param, and I'm not affected by all these three modes of material nature. And so similarly saying, he alone existed before the creation, and in him only, because he is a supreme Lord, all living beings merge. So this aspect, Prabhupada focuses on this aspect of merging uh, in the purport, and he talks of two types of dissolution. He says when Brahma's day ends, right, when Brahma goes to sleep, then all the living entities in the planetary system, they actually they enter into the womb of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Garbhodaksha Vishnu, the navel is coming, right, and Brahma is seated on top of the lotus flower. So when the partial annihilation at the night of Brahma, then all the living entities from the material universes, they go into Garbhodaksha. And then when Brahma wakes up, then again he's like, okay, why am I here? Again, he has to do all these prayers. He gets a creative mercy from the Lord. Like Lord has to remind him, you are here, Brahma, you're supposed to create. This is how to do it. And then again, all the living entities come. That is one kind of dissolution. The second is after the lifetime of Brahma, after 100 years of Brahma. Then when Brahma actually leaves, then the entire material universe, the whole bubble, is actually bound up into the body of Mahavishnu. Then all the living entities, they merge into the body of Mahavishnu. Right? So Prabhupada explained these two. And he says Brahma's 100 years is, you see the number there, 8.6 billion, 8.64 billion multiplied by 30, multiplied by 12, multiplied by 100. That is the lifetime of Brahmaji. Right? Still, that lifetime is considered to be like a moment. So, so that's the two things Prabhupada explains. And beyond, he actually says that the merging that is actually said here is not that, how the impersonalists consider the merging. They are entering into the body, but that is just temporary for a particular time period, and then again they come out. Right? So it is not anyway talking of impersonalism or that merging aspect. Okay, so that's the thing in this. So next, let's go to Peggy.
Sa eva bhuyo nijavirya choditam swajiva mayam prakritim sisrikshatim anamarupaatmani rupanamani vidit samano nusasara shastrakrit.
The personality of Godhead, again, desiring to give names of and forms to his parts and parcels, the living entities, place them under the guidance of material nature by his own potency, material nature empowered to recreate.
So now they are continuing from the previous point. So when all the living entities merge into the body of the Lord, either during partial or complete, then after that, when they come out, then the Lord is actually giving them, again desiring to give them names and forms to his parts and parcels. He actually assigns them based on their previous karma, based on their desires. He gives them different names and forms and says, okay, you are so and so, you take birth in so and so species, and in that way he places them under the Prakriti, right? So Prakriti, under the guidance of Prakriti. And by his own potency, material nature is empowered to recreate. Maya Dakshena Prakriti. So it is under the Dakshena, under the vision of the Lord, the Prakriti is actually doing all this stuff. But it is only the same Lord who's actually again giving the living entities a chance to actually come back to him. This is the same Lord who's right here in front of us. So Prabhupada is actually mentioning that point in purple. He says, he talks of Nitya Mukta and Nitya Baddha. Those are eternally liberated and eternally bound. And he says, the Nitya Baddha are entrusted to Maya. They are given to Maya under Maya shelter for rectification of their rebellious attitude towards Krishna. Why are we here? We are giving a chance for the rectification of our rebellious attitude. We have turned away from Krishna. So every time we come out, every time we are come back into existence, is a chance for us to actually rectify, correct our wrong nature, our rebellious nature. But Prabhupada says, under Maya Shakti, we merely we go on making our plans. But Prabhupada says so beautiful. By the will of the Lord, both the plan makers and the plans are annihilated at the certain period of time. All our plans and also the person making the plan and the plan maker, both of them are annihilated. That is under the influence of Maya. Okay. Next verse.
Sava ayam yat padamatra surayo jitendriya nirjita matarishvanaha pashyanti bhakyut kalitamalatmana nanvesha sattvam parimarshtumarhati.
Here is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead whose transcendental form is experienced by the great devotees who are completely cleansed of material consciousness by dint of right devotional service and full control of life and the senses. And that is the only way to purify existence.
Okay. One point I forgot to mention in the previous verse. You see the last word of 22, it says Shastra Krit. The Prabhupada elaborates on Shastra Krit. It is actually Prabhupada says towards the end of the purport. He says, yes, we are giving a chance to rectify our rebellious nature. And he says, how is that? By the Lord giving us the Shastra. The Lord gives us the Shastra. Actually, says the first breath of the Lord, the first part of the breath is actually the Vedas that is coming out. Right? So with the creation, there is the Vedas also that come, and Lord is giving, and Prabhupada focuses on the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. This is these two scriptures are given to us so that all the rebellious living entities can go back home. Now in 23, he says here is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, is transcendental form. So yes, he is transcendental to this material nature, right? He existed before this creation. After the entire annihilation, it is he only, the Lord, who exists. The living entities go back into him and then come back. So he is that. But how can he be understood? So here it is actually said. Here is the same personality whose transcendental form is actually experienced by his devotees. Right? So only his devotees, like how Bhagavad Gita also says, Bhaktya Mam Abhiyanati. Only the devotees can actually understand the Lord. And further it says that devotees in the verse is actually referred to as Surya. Surya referring to the devotees. And it says Jitendriya, and 2 points I mentioned, Jitendriya and Nirjita Mata Ishvara. So Jit Indriya, those who have conquered their senses, and Nirjita Mata Ishvara, whose life airs are completely controlled. So Prabhupada makes the point. If our life airs are controlled, that means our senses are actually controlled. Okay. And then further Prabhupada elaborates on this point of controlling the senses. How can we control the senses? Like Prabhupada explains the whole point of how Vishwamitra Muni, he tried to control his senses through the yogic trance, but he was easily disturbed by Menaka. And for devotees, Prabhupada is saying from devotional service, how are senses controlled? By actually engaging in Krishna conscious activities. Right? And Prabhupada quotes that verse from Bhagavad Gita, which is that? Anyone knows that verse? Param Drishva Nivartate, right? 259. Param Drishva Nivartate. That how we can actually purify our senses, control our senses by getting that higher taste of engaging our senses in Krishna conscious activities. Prabhupada is saying devotional service necessitates purifying the senses or engaging them in activities. So when we come, we do different kinds of service, like in Janmashtami, we're so busily, so nicely engaged in so many services. We are actually purifying our senses. We're getting a taste for Krishna conscious activities. In that way, our senses are purified, and that way we can control our senses. And hence, Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, therefore, controlling the senses by devotional service is the only and easiest means. Right? So even these ladies are making the point, like the last sentence of the translation actually says, that is the only way to purify our senses. What is it? Bhakti. Right? So bhakti is the only way to purify our senses. Bhakti is the only way to experience that Lord who is actually transcendental to the creation. Okay? 24.
Ayam sakyanugita satkato vedeshu guyeshu cha guyavadipihi ya eka isho jagadatma lilaya srijat yavatyatina tatra sajate.
Oh, dear friends, here's that very personality of Godhead who is attractive and confidential pastimes are described in the confidential parts of Vedic literature by his great devotees. It is he only who creates, maintains, and annihilates the material world, and yet remains unaffected.
Sarva ayam sakya anugita satkatho. Anugita means they are described. Satkatho. Satkatho means all this same Lord is described through these satkatha, through excellent pastime. And then Vedeshu Guyeshu. Guyeshu means, in Bhagavad Gita also we see this word Guyam coming again and again. It means most confidential, right? Most confidential. So Guyeshu So if you see the flow, okay, the Lord is beyond the creation, right? Then all the living entities enter into the Lord. It's the Lord who's giving them names and forms just for the purpose of rectifying our consciousness. And then how do we understand the Lord? Well, it is only the devotees, only through bhakti that we can understand. And what are the qualities of devotees? Devotees who have overcome their senses, whose life has a completely controlled. Then how do we know? Okay, those devotees know. How can we know? These devotees, they actually glorify that same Lord through excellent, who performs excellent pastime in the confidential sections of the Vedas. So Vedeshu Guyeshu Guya Vadibihi. So Guyeshu, confidential scriptures, and Guya Vadibihi means confidential devotees. So the confidential devotees are glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the confidential sections of the Vedas. Ya Eka Isho Jagat Atma Vilaya Trijati Avati Atina. So the second part is, it is he only who creates, maintains, and annihilates the material world, and yet he actually remains unaffected from all these influences. So he's doing everything, but it is Swabhaviki Jnana Balakya. So that's his energies are doing. He is not affected. Right? He is not affected. Like the first verse of the Bhagavatam, where it says, yes, he is doing everything, but he is in his own abode. Right? Nirasta Kuakam Satyam Param. Nirasta Kuakam is not affected. So Prabhupada says, so how do we know the Lord? These confidential devotees, and Prabhupada lists them, Vyasadeva, Narada, Sukadeva, the 12 Mahajanas. Right? He says these Mahajanas are revealing the confidential sections of the Vedas to us, and through that we can actually know the Lord. 25.
Yada yadharmena tamodhiyo nrpa jivanti tatraisha hi sattvata kila dhate bhogham satyamritam dayam yasho bhavaya rupani dadhad yuge yuge.
Hare Krishna. Whenever there are kings and administrators living like animals in the lowest modes of existence, the Lord in his transcendental form manifests his supreme power, the truth positive, shows special mercy to the faithful, performs wonderful activities, and manifests various transcendental forms as is necessary in different periods and ages.
This verse is actually very similar to one verse in Bhagavad Gita. So one can say, I'll explain the verse first. Yadahi adharmena, whenever there's adharma, right? Tamadiya, by the kings who are actually in the lowest modes of material nature, Nipaha, then Satvataha, transcendental, Kila suddenly manifested. Then the Lord actually, he comes, he appears to what? To what? Dayam, to actually show mercy to the faithful. Then he comes to show different pastimes, different activities as is necessary in Yuge Yuge. Right? So it is actually two verses of Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure you all have it. Yada 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 said Glane Bhavati Bharata. And then it says Yuge Yuge. So this is basically like the same theme is there. That whenever the kings and administrators, they act like animals in Tamo, in the mode of ignorance, then the Lord actually appears to show his mercy to the faithful. And then when he actually comes, he comes in different ages. And when he comes in different ages, different periods, he shows his different wonderful forms and pastimes. Right? It comes as Varaha, Vamana, Narsimha, and so on. Okay. And Prabhupada says like he descends to keep the state of this creation in a normal condition. So the creation is meant for a particular purpose, to reclaim all of us back to Godhead. But then we mess up the creation in such a way, like we mess up this world in such a way, the Lord comes and he makes it normal. Okay, now Yudhishthira is the king, now everyone will get a right opportunity. So he makes it normal so that we all can revive. And then I'll go back on. And Prabhupada says the material world is created to satisfy the whims of the Nitya Baddha, just as naughty boys are provided with playing cradles. And we see Madhav raising his hand. When naughty boys, they just want to play, are provided with playing cradles. Similarly, the Lord has given us this material world for us who are naughty to try to enjoy. Here, separate Krishna. And he comes in different forms, so he does different pastimes. So Prabhupada mentions how he shows different wonderful pastimes like killing Putana, lifting Govardhan here, and so on. Okay, so okay, let's continue. 26.
Aho alam shlagyatamam yadokulam, aho alam punyatamam madurvanam, yadesha pumsam rishabhashriyapatihi, swajanmana chakram manena chanchati.
Oh, how supremely glorified is the destiny of King Yadu, and how virtuous is the land of Mathura, where the supreme leader of all living beings, the husband of the goddess of fortune, has taken his birth and wandered in his childhood. Hare Krishna.
So you see the flow of the verses, right? He's starting with how the Lord is the one beyond creation, how he's actually giving us different forms when he comes. Then we came to the point of how can the Lord be understood? That's the second section, only by bhakti, by devotional service. And it is these confidential devotees who reveal the Lord in confidential sections of the Vedas. Then coming to a point that, oh, why does the Lord descend? Why does he come from the transcendental nature into this world? Well, to kill the demons, to give faith to protect the faithful, right? And then after that, where does he come? Well, he comes in. Here it says, Aho alam saglitam. Okay, so how glorious is the dynasty of King Yadu. When he comes, he takes birth in the family of the Yadus. So how glorious is that Yadu dynasty? And also, when he comes, he appears in the land of Mathura. So how glorious is the land of Mathura? So you see the flow, right? From that awe and reverence coming, why the Lord descends, where the Lord, so where he descends, that is glorified in this world. How supremely glorified. So two things, the dynasty and the land of Mathura. And it actually says supreme leader of all living. Punyatamam. Okay, that's that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, here. Shreyapatihi. So Rishabha and Shreyapati. So Rishabha referring to the supreme leader of all living entities, and Shreyapati referring to the husband of goddess of fortune. And he has taken birth and wandered in his childhood. Chakra, Chankra Manena. So when he actually comes, he takes birth and then he just performs his childhood pastimes like crawling in the dust of Vrindavan. And so. Okay, now it's 10:40. I'm going to stop here. So I'm just going to give you a flow of the remaining verses. Maybe I'll do a recording, but at least you'll get the flow of the verses. So if you see the flow, okay, why the Lord descended? Where he descended, that is glorious. So King Yadu, the dynasty of the Yadus is glorious, and the place known as Mathura is glorious. Then further they talk of the glories of the Mathura Vasis. They talk of the glories of the queens of Mathura. Because now, what are they thinking? Krishna is leaving us, he's going to Dwarka. All the Dwarka residents are so fortunate. All the queens, Krishna never leaves them. But we are so unfortunate that Krishna is leaving us today. So how glorious are all those queens of Dwarka? And then they glorify what about the children of all those queens? Krishna is there with them. He's actually become their father. So how glorious are those children of those queens of Dwarka? Right? So in that way, this prayers end. So they are glorifying because they know Krishna is going to Dwarka. They are glorifying the presence of Dwarka. And that way, they offer their prayers. And here, after that, they say, how is Krishna's reciprocation? Yeah. So in text 31, it says, while the ladies of the capital Hastinapur were greeting him and talking in this way, the Lord, smiling, accepted their good greeting. So again, he just smiled, right? And casting his grace of his glance over them, he departed from the city. So Chakravarti is actually saying that those ladies, because they're talking about each other, those ladies had that Shantaras, and Krishna smiled at them. But those ladies had a little bit of Madhurya, then Krishna glanced at them. And that's it. That's how Krishna reciprocated. And then he set out. Okay. So the final section is basically saying how Krishna, he went through all these different places, how the Pandavas, they said, oh, we'll come with you, and Yudhishthira actually sent all his different armies just to accompany the Lord. And they were like walking towards Dwarka just to, how when a guest goes, you walk to the door or to the gate to show that respect. Similarly, all the Pandavas with their army, they were walking. And a particular time, Krishna said, are you going to walk all the way to Dwarka? You have to go back now, right? So then Krishna actually bid them farewell, and then he continues on his journey. And that's so. I know this last section I went a little fast, but I will do a little recording on this, like last few verses. It shouldn't be too long, but half an hour maybe a recording. And then next week we'll continue on chapter 11. So thank you all so much. So any final comments, realizations, questions? Okay, thanks, Fatima. Maybe I'll just say our final pranams, and then if you want to say a realization, drop. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you all so much for your kind association. I know everyone is super tired after the intense Janmashtami, but still you took time to be here on the call. So I'm very grateful to all of you for your kind association. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So anyone want to leave any, share any comments before leaving?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I really like that we all have to become mad for Krishna.
Yes, that's our goal of life. Anything else? No?
How Krishna liked the prayers of the ladies more than the Vedas, and how Krishna is looking for love, not for like the perfect pronunciation and all that.
Yes, Prabhuji, Krishna likes those bhajans, prayers of all of our acharyas, even though they are in the normal words, because they have their mood in it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, I was thinking about how blinking of even the eyelid is considered as a wastage of time. So really, I don't have any bhakti, right? Then I will think about that.
We don't even notice our eye blink.
Long way home.
At least we are on, like how Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam is going to reveal everything. At least we are on doing the right thing at the right time. Okay. Okay. So we'll stop here. Thank you all so much for your association. I hope everyone can get some rest. Get again enthused to engage in more seva. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam, ki jai, Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Hare
so
Krishna,
much.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.